quick reminder, you can always check to see where the chapters are just by looking at the weekly readings. So we are in chapter 4. You should be reading chapter 11, chapter 4, and chapter 5 this week. Chapter 4 talks about an online presence. As you recall, we've said to you that, we talked yesterday about promoting yourselves, right? We talked about the importance of promoting yourselves, and we've started talking about the importance of having an online presence. We've said time and time again that, a LinkedIn account is going to be your best friend, really, when it comes to promoting yourselves, when it comes to your career, right? So that's going to be very, very important that you have a LinkedIn account. And so chapter 4 just talks really briefly about different types of online presence. And that's what we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about today, right? So we are also going to talk about, in addition to that, being a bit careful of how you use your online presence. I was just reading today. We've all heard about the federal workers that lost their jobs, right? Give me a quick thumbs up if you've heard about that. We may even know someone. Unfortunately, I was one of them. I had a major contract with the federal government, lost that too. So, um, a lot of the federal workers have started, sharing their opinions about, the fact that they've lost their jobs, and, they've even been reprimanded for doing so because I guess, by word of mouth or whatever, people have seen that they put out these comments about losing their jobs and how they feel about it. And, I guess it has gotten a bit political. Well, the federal government and other entities are a bit sensitive about what you do put online. We've heard people, get fired from what they write online and all things of that sort. So while we do encourage you to have an online presence to promote yourself, we also want to remind you that it is, important that you are careful about what you put online, especially when it's not career related, because you just don't want those things to come back and, affect you. We've heard of Twitter fingers, people that like, well, when it used to be Twitter, of how they put all these different comments online and how they refer to different things. And sometimes it can reflect poorly on the institution that you work for. So they ask for you just not to do that stuff. I always tell people, if you have been a bit more liberal with, being online, because some people use it as a, an outlet, or, they just may have opinions about certain things, that you want to taper that when you start your career, because especially if you own your own business, or if the company that you work for is high profile, you just don't want to have any negative connotation when it comes to, what you've posted online. They call what you post online your digital footprint, because any tech savvy person, if they wanted to, could, reverse engineer who said what and find out who that person is, like if they really, really wanted to, right? Not that most companies are going to spend money to do that, but depending upon the type of work that you do and who you work for, that can happen. So, yes, while we want you to be online, we do want you to be mindful of that. Chapter 4 even talks about starting to make your email accounts professional, putting different signature blocks on your email account, but also making sure that in order to um, for your own personal safety, to make sure you have really, really, really strong passwords, to make sure you have really good signature blocks where someone can identify who you are. You know, we've all may have heard of, spam emails and things of that nature, and you don't know if something is real or not real. And a lot of times you can just notice by, the email that it was sent from, what the signature block looks like. All those different things can help differentiate your authenticity from, something that is not real. So chapter 4 we'll talk about that. I even tell people, even if you have a Google account, it's okay to put a signature block down there, because especially if you're going to be engaging with, companies, whether it's to look for a job or whatever, go ahead and put a signature block. I put a signature block on my personal email, even if it's nothing more than my first and last name, my phone number, if I want that person to have it. It just, it gives the appearance of, being a professional, right? So why do we even want you to be online? Because we want you to network. Networking is going to be very, very important. You'll find, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, how a high percentage of people get their jobs from networking. And it's nothing more than talking to people. Even if you are on LinkedIn and you don't know someone, yesterday or day before, I talked about just introducing yourself to someone online and opening up those channels so you can network. Like, you'd be surprised how many people are willing to engage with you on a professional level when you're talking business. People like that, right? So there's nothing wrong with going ahead and getting that started. There's no need to be afraid to talk to people in your industry. I would say start with this class. Start with me. um, you know, there's, anybody here that, whether they're in your program or not, link up with them. You never know. 2 years from now, a year from now, you can be working somewhere, or maybe your company got let you go. And you've connected with these people in this classroom, and you're on LinkedIn, and you notice somebody posted, "Hey, my company has a job," or maybe you just reach out to them and say, "Hey, I see that you work for ABC company. You mind passing on my resume?" How many people wouldn't do that? Most of us would be like, sure, okay. Hey, I know this guy from Southern Tech. Here you go. That's networking. You don't have to know everything about that person. I have people that have networked with me from years and years ago. I'm talking 20 years ago when I used to work in Africa. I have people, students that I taught from Africa, linked in with me on LinkedIn, and they update me. They ask me for favors. I have coworkers or previous coworkers that I've worked with all the way back to the early 2000s that are still asking me to do references or whatever. Like, you would be surprised. And we haven't even spoken, but it's because we are connected and I'm part of their network. So do not be afraid to establish your network. It will come in handy, I promise you. Now, the book also talks about X. I'm going to be the first person to tell you I am not a proponent of X in its current state. I don't know how many of us remember Twitter back in the day, and I'm not talking about last year. I'm talking about pre Elon Musk. When Twitter first started, give me a thumbs up if you agree with this. It used to be a premier news outlet. Twitter used to be, every company was on Twitter. I don't know if you guys remember that. You could go there. Y'all, thank you, Alyssa. You could go there and you can get some really good information. Like, I remember all the companies I used to work for, even consulted for, they were like, "Oh, yeah, and check my Twitter account because we're putting out all this good information about Twitter." I wouldn't trust X as far as I can throw it right now, because it is too, in my personal opinion, propaganda based. I just happen to be a researcher. I happen to be a fact based person. I think, you know, personal views are fine. There's a place for that. But Twitter used to not be that place, but now I feel like it is. So I don't push like X in its current state because I just don't feel like it has the unbiased news that it used to have. And not that there wasn't some bias to it, but to me, it just, I'm the type of person, I just like it. I'm old school. Just give me the facts. I'll figure out how I feel about it. And so, but X is out there. Use it at your own will. But just be mindful of it. You just don't want to fall into that booby trap of being, in some type of, politically slanted leaning thing that someone else may interpret negatively. You never know if a company's on X and how they're using it. Like, you just don't even want to be associated with that type of stuff when you're trying to run your business, or when you're trying to be a professional. Like, what you do in your own time is your business. I come from the old school when we wanted to talk about stuff. We go out on the front porch of the backyard, have a barbecue, and hash it out. Like, we don't do everything online. I don't understand why everybody puts everything online, what that's about. That's weird to me. but I know it's a new era. Like everybody doesn't need to know how you feel, especially when it comes to you running a business or you being a professional. Just really, really be mindful of those things. Like you just don't want that kind of stuff to affect you. But I do encourage you to use it on a professional level, right? You want to use it on a professional level. Instagram is another great way. If you have a personal account, let your personal account be personal. In my opinion, start another Instagram account, a professional Instagram account. Would it not be cool for you if you are in the veterinary field, if you're in electrical or HVAC, and you had this website, and maybe you're really into all the cool, innovative things that's happening in the welding industry or that's happening in the electrical industry? Why not just have that type of account? Maybe you're the type of account that you post all the cool stuff that's happening in the Southeast region in your industry. When someone Googles your name, if a company that is a little bit tech savvy and they exist, people, and they want to Google you because they want to see what's the difference between you and the next guy, and this cool stuff pops up, how you're so into what's happening in your industry, it makes you look very professional, as opposed to they Google you and all they see is wrestling paraphernalia. Nothing's wrong with wrestling paraphernalia, but my friends, we want them to start seeing our professional stuff, not our personal stuff, right? They can see both. It depends on how much you post. But you just don't want that to be the case, right? So, like I said to you before, use it at your own peril. But the way you want to be strategic about it is to try to use it in a professional way, right? So, um, really, that is a lot of what I wanted to talk to you about really quickly with chapter 4. I want to give you a chance to read chapter 4 and chapter 5. And I know it's a couple of chapters, even chapter 11, we want you to dig into a little bit. So I'm going to give you time to do that. And I also know there are some of you that still have to do your interviews. If you're running into any issues, I've had some people tell me that, they've had to reschedule, which is fine. If you have to reschedule your mock interview, or even, some people had to be a little late with their resume, that is fine. You don't need my permission to do that because those meetings are between you and career services. Just go ahead and reschedule. Now, the main thing is you have to get that done before Tuesday of next week, right? So do not reschedule any mock interview past Tuesday of next week, because we're out of here on Thursday, and you cannot have a mock interview on Wednesday and Thursday. So you have to do it by Tuesday of next week. So you don't have to get my permission on that. If you need to be rescheduled, it's totally fine. And also remember that when you do those mock interviews, to get the form, they're going to give you a form once you're done. You need to take a picture of that and upload it to the assignment on this Thursday. I wanted to say that before we jump out of here. So please remember that. All right. So let's just wrap this up. So the main thing that chapter 4 is talking about is understanding that, your career is long. I think some of us know that by now. Some of us are even on our second and third careers. So that, it is going to be a process. That's why it's important for you to treat it as such. That's why it's important for you to understand that you have to promote yourself, that you're going to have to figure out, how are you going to differentiate yourself from the next person, right? So just understand, you're in it for the long game. It's not a overnight success. That's not how success happens. And so that's the main things I wanted you to pay attention to when you are in chapter 4. All right. I promised you I was going to give you some of your time back so some of you guys can get to your interviews. Here's your participation question for today. Here's what I want you to do. In the vein of thinking about networking and understanding, okay, this is going to be a process, I want you to answer this question, and don't leave because I need to talk to you about career plan part 2. So don't jump off yet. But here is your participation question. I want you to name 3 people and or places. It can be 3 people, 3 places, 2 people, 1 place. I don't really care. That you feel that you can use to grow your network. Maybe you want to say, in school or online, or, a former coworker. Maybe you want to say your uncle, or maybe somebody that you know that's in the industry, like whoever you want to say. Just think about, okay, how can I grow my network? Maybe you want to say LinkedIn or whatever you want to say, or social media. And then tell me, which of them are you using now, right? So 3 people or places you can use to grow your network, and which ones are you using now? That's your question. While you're writing that down, today you have to do career plan part 2. Today you have to do career plan part 2. What does that mean? If you recall, in week 1, you did your long-term goals. And I told you that in week 3, you are going to be writing steps to complete your long-term goal. How many steps you have is up to you. You can have 2 steps, you can have 3 steps, whatever steps you need to take to get to your long-term goal. If you need to go back to chapter 1 to refresh your memory on how to write short-term goals, I encourage you to do that. There is a tool in the assignment that is going to help you with short-term goals. As an example, remember I said if you wanted to be a master electrician, maybe you may have 3 steps: graduate from this school, maybe do a certification, go study and sit for the exam. Those would be your 3 steps, right? If you want to own your own business, you may say, okay, one of my steps is to get my certification, my master electrician's license. Then I'm going to save to start my business for 2 years. And then in that 4th year, I'm going to, start to apply to own my own business, or whatever steps you want to take, right? So today, you should be giving me just steps. They can be bullet points. You don't have to write anything out in narrative form yet. You'll be doing that next week. So today, I just want steps, but the assignment will help you to do that. So please don't forget that is due today. All right, my friends, good luck in your mock interviews. If you don't need anything else from me, I'm going to release you for today. Please make sure you're reading chapters 4 and 5 because they are going to be on your final. Okay. Thanks, guys.